All right, guys, welcome. Welcome to the first in our new series of Chef Look Cooks, the Look-alike series. We're going to be spending the next couple months making foods that look like one food but are usually made from something entirely different. And so today we're going to start with something that a lot of you have probably seen around or maybe even eaten in the past. We're going to do a nut-based cheese. A lot of nut-based cheeses are usually made with cashews, and cashews, of course, are very smooth, they're very fatty. They're a very good nut to use for making cheese because they don't have a lot of fiber and strange sort of shells on them. Hazelnuts have like a pretty, it's like a sub shell. You have the hard shell on the outside, and then there's like a smaller one, almost like a peanut, like a covering shell. And you can see that sort of on these right here. And so they can kind of be a little bit gritty and nutty, but that works really well for what we're doing today, which is a ricotta. Ricotta is a very small curd cheese. It looks smooth, but you can even blend it still and get it smoother. And so this works really perfect for that because even when we blend it, it still kind of is a little bit grainy, and it gives us that same sort of mouthfeel as ricotta. So hazelnuts and almonds are both nuts that would sort of fall into that category of a very hard nut, something you'd want to use for a ricotta-based cheese, whereas something like a macadamia or a cashew is going to be a softer nut, something you'd want to use for a softer cheese. There's a lot of cheese recipes that will use cashews, and they end up being pretty much like a cream cheese. They're very thin, not thin, but they're very smooth. And then you can add thickener to that to make it set up and act almost like a cheddar or something that you can melt, which is really fun. We're going to do something a lot more simple today just because we have a whole bunch of hazelnuts. First things first, at the end of this day, I'd love to have all those hazelnuts gone, so please do take some home with you if you'd like to try this at home, or if you just like hazelnuts and want to put it on your ice cream or something like that. You don't have to tell me what you're using it for, but I would love for you to take some home if you so desire. They're really nice. I love hazelnuts. They're delicious. And you're not going to recognize them by the time we're done with them. So first things first, what you want to do is you want to take your hazelnuts, however much you're going to use. The recipe's for 3 cups of hazelnuts. This bag's about 4 cups. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of mess with the recipe a bit. I'm going to do 2 different batches here. I'm going to do one that has the maximum amount of nutritional yeast or brewer's yeast. Some of you have probably seen this. It goes really good on popcorn. If you've never used it on popcorn, it's delicious. We're going to put a lot of that in one of them. That's going to be a little bit more savory of a flavor, something closer to like a cheddar-ish thing. And we'll talk more about the flavor profile when we're doing it. And the other one, we're going to not put no nutritional yeast. And that's the one that we're going to drizzle the honey on top of. And that's going to be more of a sweet, closer to like a cream cheese sort of flavor. And the recipe is basically the exact same. Just how much nutritional yeast you put in there is going to sort of change how cheesy it tastes, basically. This has a very, I guess I'll talk about it now. This has been fermented. It's been through sort of a similar process that, cheese would have. It's got some time on it, some aging on it. And so it's got a very complex sort of umami flavor, that sort of savory taste that you get from old cheeses like cheddar or like a really well dry-aged steak. That's something you're going to get from nutritional yeast. It's a nice sort of vegan way to make that happen in your foods. So by adding it to the cheese, we're going to give it that sort of that tang, that thing that sort of makes you smack your lips, and that's going to bring it into a savory realm. But because we're also working with honey today, we're going to omit it for half of the recipe, so we can kind of try them 2 different ways. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it. I've already soaked my hazelnuts. I have done this both ways. I've done a 6-hour overnight soak, and I've done a 1-hour hot soak. I like the hot soak better. As you can see here, there's like sort of like a brown liquid in here. The thin skin on the outside of the hazelnuts kind of almost dissolves in the heat. And so I kind of like this. I've liked this better because I think the product's a little bit smoother. The nuts tend to get a little bit softer when they're cooked a little bit by the hot liquid. And so I've kind of settled on this as like my preferred way to do this process. But that doesn't mean that the cold soak is bad or worse. If anything, the cold soak is probably more nutritional because you're not cooking it at all, so you're not degrading any of the nutrients that are in the nuts. Whereas when you heat it up, it does lose a little bit of its nutritional value. It's not like going to be tons, but if you're like very much, it's important to you to get all of the nutritional value of the hazelnuts, do a cold soak instead. You're going to end up with more of that because this color and that's in this water, that's all stuff that could be in your body and could be giving you energy and stuff. So it works better because I think it's a lot smoother, but and it's also faster, which is nice. It only takes an hour of soaking and you're ready to go. Whereas you can do as little as 10 minutes too if you're like really jonesing for some cheese. But this soaked for about an hour. I did it earlier. And then again, a cold soak in the fridge overnight is also perfectly fine as well. So I'm just going to start by straining these off just so you can sort of see what they look like. And we're going to be doing 2 recipes kind of at the same time. I always like to sort of challenge myself and do as much as I possibly can at once. So I'm going to be sort of jumping back and forth between the 2 recipes as we go here. And I'll try my best to sort of explain which parts we're doing at which different stage. And so I'm just going to shake these off here. And I'm going to put them right back in their same bowl. This is a really nice strainer because it fits right on the top of the bowl so it can kind of strain. So I'm just going to let those strain a bit. And we're actually going to jump into our other recipe and get that started. So I've got some water boiling here. Even though I already soaked these, I actually was doing some research earlier today and I found a really cool trick for the honey that I'm going to try out with you guys today. I've never actually made this honey before, so this is going to be a fun experience for all of us. But honey generally has a little bit of a floral note to it because it's made from different flowers, depending on which honey you get, which tea you get, or which honey you get from where. It's going to be usually clover honey. That's like the most standard one, but it comes from all different places. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to make some tea, and for the water in the recipe, there's a cup of water in there. We're going to use the tea instead of the water, and that's going to give it, hopefully give it some of that floral notes that we're looking for. I can only find chamomile, which I think is going to be just fine. It'll make it a nice little nap time honey, but you can use literally any flower you want. Anything, you know, obviously clovers would be great, and I know there's some clover tea out there. And this is just a new trick that I found out to kind of add a little bit more of that like honey-esque feel to this tea, yeah. So I'm just I got some hot water, going to pour it over the tea and just let it steep while I start the rest of this process. And that should add a really nice sort of aspect to this that I think it might be lacking. I've never actually tried it myself, but so and really important to note, in this recipe here, we have tapioca starch at the end. And so I brought some in with me, a little baggie of tapioca starch. You can use cornstarch if you want to. Tapioca starch is just nice because of the particular amount of starch that's in there, but it's very similar to any other starch, potato starch. They're all pretty much the same, but tapioca starch is what this called for, so that's what we've got. There are recipes out there that don't have any starch in them. They tend to use less sugar. So essentially, I did some research today just to kind of see what I could do without starch. But they take a lot longer. It takes about 3 hours in the fridge to cool down completely before it gets nice and thick like honey. We just don't have that time today. So we're going to stick with the starch just so we can get a nice thick honey. But if you want to avoid the starch or you just don't have it, you can. And what I do in that situation is I take out a whole cup of sugar. And that's basically it. You take out the cup of sugar, you take out the tapioca starch, you're going to cook it for longer, maybe about 10-15 minutes longer. And essentially with that situation, you're actually just making a reduction. You're not really, in this case, we're kind of cooking the flavors together. We're making a bit of a reduction and then we're thickening it with a starch. In this case, you're really just doing the reduction. You're using the pectin from the apple and the sugar to make essentially a very thin jelly. And so when you put it in the fridge to set, it's setting like a jelly would overnight. And you're getting almost like a jelly that's sort of not well stuck together. And so that's one way to do it with apple juice. But if you're doing that, you also want to make sure you get organic apple juice, something that doesn't have any additives in it because they will mess with the pectin that is going to help make it thicken. We're kind of cheating today, and we're using the starch. So we don't have to really worry about that. But it is an option, just so you guys know, to do at home if you wanted to. This recipe is pretty moldable. The main sort of staples of it are 2 cups of juice, 1 cup of sugar, and then the lemon juice. Those are like the core. Everything else is flavorings. And then in this case, we add the extra sugar and the maple syrup to really intensify and make it super sweet. So cool, without any further ado, we're going to start measuring. We're going to get this heated up, and we're going to start boiling that. So this is going to take about 20 minutes to half an hour to sort of cook and reduce before we put the tapioca starch in there. So that's why I'm getting it started now, just so we can be well ahead on the honey. It will want a little bit of time to cool, but that starch is really going to make it easy for us. So we got some nice organic apple juice. This was on sale actually too, which I'm always excited about. And we're just going to pop that right in there right now. I'm actually going to start with the brown sugar just because it tends to stick to the cup if you do liquids first. So we'll do 2 cups of brown sugar and 2 cups of apple juice. And you can use white sugar. You can use coconut sugar. There's organic coconut sugar is what a lot of people recommend online if you want to make sure that you're being as vegan as possible in this situation, for instance. Just because there's a lot of different sort of techniques that are used to strain off the liquid before the sugar is sort of dehydrated that are maybe not necessarily good practices for vegan. I guess there's a lot of bone-based filters that are used, and so just something again I was reading about today. Bring that knowledge out in there. So coconut sugar specifically avoids that process, and so it's usually getting an organic coconut sugar is a good sort of way to, if you were trying to go for full vegan, to ensure that was working for you. So we got 2 cups of brown sugar, and I like the brown sugar here. It's going to make our honey a little bit dark. It's not going to look like a really nice like filtered clover honey. It's going to look like a honey maybe you had in the cabinet for like a month or two open, but it's going to taste really good, so it shouldn't be problematic whatsoever. So there's 2 cups of that, and then 2 cups of apple juice. And apple juice is used mainly just because it's got a lot of sugar in it, and that pectin is very helpful, and then the color is like perfect. It's that perfect sort of honey color we're going for. We are going to mess that up a little bit with the brown sugar, but I just like brown sugar a lot better than white sugar. It just got a better flavor. It's kind of nice. It's basically just white sugar with molasses in it, but it always just kind of, I don't know, it tastes better somehow. Okay, so that is 2 cups of each of the liquids. We're going to come in here with a 1/4 cup of maple syrup. I'm just giving that tea as long as possible to steep before I put it in there. Get as much of that chamomile flavor as we can. So 1/4 cup of maple syrup. And again, there's a lot of sugar in here, and we're making quite a lot of honey. This is going to end up with about 2 cups, 1.5 cups of honey when we're done. So it'll last you for a while. This is definitely like sort of a batch thing you can do, every couple months. Keep it in the fridge. It keeps for a really, really long time. So and it's a fun little food experiment. We're mainly just waiting for this to come to a boil once we get everything in there. Okay, great. So then we're going to go for the lemon juice. 3 tablespoons of lemon juice. Ooh, a little extra there. So I was a little, I've been researching this today because I was like, man, I'm still so like confused by this honey. It's something I've never tried before. I'm very excited to buy it. And I was researching the lemon, and something about the lemon is it really brings this, like the apple juice alone doesn't do it. Something about the lemon and cooking for a very long time. Usually lemon is added at the end of cooking processes, so it can be fresh and sort of bright. But this is added at the beginning, and it's purposely sort of cooked into it. And so something about putting that lemon, that acid in there, works to make it taste more like honey than anything else. I've got a pulp-free orange juice. A lot of honey is also orange blossom based, so again, this is kind of working into that, trying to bring back make your mind sort of associate this with something you recognize, and you taste that little bit of orange, your brain's going to be like, ooh, that is honey. It's going to sort of, I'm trying to remember what the word is for that, but it basically brings you to a place where you're tricking yourself into believing this is something that it is not. So we're going to do 2 tablespoons of orange juice as well. Oops, that's the wrong lid. All right, beautiful. So that is pretty much everything we need except for the tea. So let's go ahead and put that in there too. This is steeped for about long enough. All right, so we'll go for a cup of tea, an actual cup of tea. And we got a little extra for a nice little snip. Oh, it's way too hot. Oh, it's good. Okay, perfect. So that's everything we need in here. Quite a lot of liquid. We're going to cook this. We're going to let this come to a boil. I'm going to turn it down. Oh, I got to put it up. Let's go. Crank it. We're going to let this come to a boil. I'm going to turn it down. I'm going to let it simmer. And while it's simmering, I'm going to be making our nut cheese here on the side. I'm just going to get a little spoon and see what that tastes like right now, just for... You can already see it's kind of it's definitely like a darker color than honey would be, and it's going to keep that dark color. And most of that is the brown sugar, but I don't really mind if the flavor is good. That's all that really matters. We're trusting the internet today, guys, because this is something I've never done before, which I love. I love going into unknown realms. Wow, that's really good. Okay, so that tastes kind of honey-like. That's kind of cool. Okay, so you guys will get a chance to try this when it's done. But immediately I taste apple, and then the brown sugar comes in with that sort of that like caramelized flavor almost that you get from honey sometimes. Honey has that particular taste that almost like it feels like nothing else. It comes from sort of somewhere else, and for whatever, somehow this has sort of captured that strange honey flavor. So I'm excited to see where that goes because it's starting great. So beautiful. So let's jump into our next thing. I've got a pretty basic blender here. If you have something better at home, this is a, what is it? Osterizer. So this thing's been around for a long time. If you have a better blender at home, use it. Vitamix was recommended on a lot of the websites. Again, I'm not like supporting that as a company, but it's just a really powerful blender. It's commercial grade. And what that's going to mean, basically, the difference in blender is going to mean how much you can do at one time, and then it's also going to determine sort of how thick or thin and crunchy it gets. We're going to probably have to turn this off and stir it about 4 or 5 times, whereas a Vitamix or something more powerful is going to immediately make that suction and make sort of like the swirl happen. And once that happens, this thing's just going to go to town, make us cheese in no time. But we don't have that. We have this, and it does work really well. I just tested it yesterday, so we're going to go ahead and just shake those out, get the rest of that liquid out of there. We're going to first make the sweet version, or rather the one that doesn't have any nutritional yeast, just so I don't have to clean out the blender. I can just immediately make the next one right on top. Let's go ahead and crack our coconut milk. So I use coconut milk in this recipe. A lot of the recipes I was looking at online use water, and I've used water before to make this cheese, and it's just not very good. It's not that it's bad, it tastes good, but when you like put it on a plate or like on a cracker, the water starts to seep out. It doesn't really bond very well with the fats in the nut. Coconut milk has a lot of fat in it as well, and so what ends up happening is you blend them all together, and it sort of sticks to the nut fats and fiber, and it doesn't come out of suspension, or solution rather. So when you put it on top of a cracker, or if you put some chips in it as like a dip, they don't get soggy. The water is trapped by the nuts, whereas when you use pure water, it tends to kind of like ooze onto a plate. It's not very cheese-like. It tastes cheese-like, but it doesn't really look as much cheese-like. So this is a really good thing that I found. They actually were using coconut cream and water, but coconut milk is basically just watered down coconut cream. And then, don't ever, just in case you guys have ever done this before, don't buy light coconut milk. Just don't. That whole thing needs to die. Coconut milk and light coconut milk are the exact same thing. They just literally add water. So if you ever are like, oh, I'm going to get light coconut milk, I want to go on a diet, just open a can of coconut milk, cut it in half, add water, you're done. There's your diet coconut milk. So don't buy it. Coconut cream, same deal. It's just coconut milk minus water. So you can add water to that and get coconut milk. So sometimes coconut cream does have sugar added. So just be careful that you're not buying that, because you don't want to add sugar if you don't want to add sugar. But coconut milk is perfect. It's just the right amount of water to coconut cream that you want for this recipe, so you can use it straight out of the can. I do like to make sure when I'm in the grocery store, I'll shake the can. If it doesn't make a sound like there's liquid in there, that means the cream is probably separated, which can be useful if you're trying to make like a mixed drink or something. But for this recipe, not so great. We don't want to have to like blend that back up again. I really like to be able to pour it out of the can if possible. This can opener is not ideal, so we're gonna see how many times around it takes before it's open. I think we got it. Yeah, there we go, perfect. And as you can sort of see, that's a nice liquidy consistency. That's what we're looking for. That's the coconut cream right there. That's the stuff that you can also buy in a can. It's really good for mixed drinks or a lot of desserts. We're just going to get the rest of that off of there and into our can. And just take this little spoon. I'll use that too. Take this one right here and just make sure that's nice and in there. We don't want to, it's okay if you have like a little extra coconut cream. But if you're doing this as one big recipe too, it also won't matter. You can just pour the whole can in there. But because I'm trying to split this in half, I just want to make sure that my cream is nice and incorporated. So beautiful. So it's a 3-cup recipe. I'm actually going to do, and there's 4 cups of hazelnuts here. So I'm going to do two 2-cup recipes, which is going to mean a little bit of math, but it's going to be okay. I did this yesterday, so I know we're just gonna forge forward and make it work. It's honestly kind of a testament to how nice this recipe is, that you can experiment a little bit with it. You'll see once we start blending. We're not really, the recipe is important for flavors and for sort of getting the balance right in that. But the main thing we're going for here is a texture. We're looking for a very particular texture that is going to remind our brains of ricotta cheese. And then once we're at that texture point, we can start adding different things and experimenting. Like the other day, it was like a month ago, I made this and it was too liquidy, so I just put some more nuts in there. It thickened up. It was really good. I made it one time and it just wasn't tasting good, so I put some herbs in there and a little bit of salt, and just an entirely different thing came out of the blender. So Texture is our sort of main goal with this. That's why we're adding liquid to it. That's why water works with this. It will make a nice texture. But honestly, coconut milk is where it's at. It sort of changed my perspective on this cheese. So I'm going to go ahead and just try and sort of eyeball about half this can. I'm going to pour it onto this just so it doesn't splash too much. That's about right. And then we're going to go in there with the rest of our liquids. So we've got salt and vinegar and lemon juice. So these acids are going to help bring in that sort of acidic taste. The thing that makes your mouth sort of pucker when you're eating cheddar, for instance. They're going to help bring in the acid part of that. This is bringing in the sort of that umami sort of savory flavor that we get from cheddar that we might not get in like a cream cheese or something like that. Okay, so we're going to start with this. So it's 2 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm just going to put about 1.5 tablespoons because again we're doing 2 cups of a 3-cup recipe, so that's about 1.5. Oh, that was too much. Get back in there. Okay, sweet. So that's our vinegar. Whoop. And then 1/4 cup of lemon juice. So 1/4 cup is 4 tablespoons. That's one of those sort of conversions that's fairly easy to remember. 3 teaspoons is a tablespoon. 1/4 cup is 4 tablespoons. They both have 4 in them, so that kind of makes that easy. Learned that back when I was a baker. So we're going to do 1/4 cup halved. It will be 2 tablespoons, but we're doing kind of like a 1.5-ish recipe, so we're going to do 3 tablespoons instead of 2. So we've got a boil over here on our apples, which is great. It's not doing like a really hard boil, so I might just leave it at high max temp and see how that goes. That's probably right about right. So I'm just going to take a look at the time. So about 20 minutes from now, we'll probably be taking it off and thickening it. So we'll see how it goes. Beautiful. So we've got white vinegar, we've got lemon juice, we've got coconut milk, we've got hazelnuts. We're going to put just a crack of salt in here, not very much at all. Again, this is going to be our sweet one, so we don't want a lot of salt. But if we don't put any salt in there, it's just not going to taste as good. And even me with my low salt attitude is willing to put a little bit in there to make it happen. Great, and then we're skipping the nutritionally. So hazelnuts, coconut milk, lemon juice, vinegar, salt. That's all in here. Let's give it a whir and see what comes out. So I like to just go, I like to sort of work my way up. I always start on high. I'm going to start at great, so you can hear me. I'm going to start at great, and then we are going to sort of work our way all the way up to ice crush and just let it go. So you can already see the problem that you're going to have with a less powerful blender is the chunks tend to get stuck at the top. Once this starts to get more liquidy, it's going to make a lot better motion. I think already it's probably going to be better than it just was. Great, we're just going to, so this is doing a nice boil now. I'm just going to go down 1. And so what's happening now is the blades are making sort of a vacuum hole, and usually that'll sort of pull things from the top down into it, but if they're kind of chunky, it doesn't really work that well. I might put a little bit of water in here. All the nuts are different, you know, every one of them has a different amount of moisture in it as well as a different amount of fat and fiber. So, you know, sometimes you might just get a drier nut and it just needs a little bit of help. It's still pretty liquidy, so I'm not going to put it in yet. I think we're going to be able to get this to blend totally, but we're just going to be prepared if we need to put some water in there. This is a good sign. This means that it's going to be really nice and thick, which is what we want. It's going to be a lot closer to ricotta and not like a soup, nut soup, which is, you know, also pretty tasty. This is looking good. Sometimes you just got to kind of stir it, get down into the bottom, and bring it back to the top. But this is looking perfect. It's looking like what we want, so that's good. So getting that sort of suction. I don't know if you guys can see it or not, but I'm hoping it keeps up. that's okay. I think it's just one more shake. We almost had it there. We almost had it. That sort of pull down. I know if anybody who eats smoothies knows what I'm talking about. It's like the most beautiful thing. It means you can walk away and go do whatever you want. So this is boiling again. I'm going to keep it down. We do want it on a simmer. If it boils too hard, we're going to caramelize the sugar in the apple juice. And because we're already using brown sugar, that's okay. It's not going to like ruin the recipe because we already have that sort of caramelized flavor in there from the molasses. But we don't want to caramelize it too much because then it's really not going to taste like honey. It's going to taste like, it's going to taste good. It's going to be sweet and delicious, but it's not going to give us that that brain spark of, ooh, this is honey. And that's kind of what we're going for, is to sort of trick ourselves into thinking it's something else. Also just to eat delicious food, like, let's be honest. All right, I think this is going to be the last one, and then we'll be able to pour it out, and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, beautiful. So that looks pretty nice. It's still a little bit liquidy, but that's okay. We don't want it to be super thick right now. It's going to sit in the fridge for a little bit, and those nuts are going to just absorb all the water, and it's going to get really, really thick. So it's going to kind of show you what it looks like coming out here. Not too shabby. And again, we're using hazelnuts, so they do have that brown shell on the outside. So that's why you're gonna see. Whoop. Get out of there. I'm gonna move this somewhere easier. You'll see that is sort of like a little brown bits in there still. Hopefully that's focused pretty well. But it's not so bad. It's pretty white. It's and the flavor is almost guaranteedly perfect. Guaranteedly delicious. Just cause I might as well make sure I'm not feeding you guys something that's horrible. Oh, that's good. Oh yeah. It's nice and sour. I can still taste the nuts. Again, this is the sweet one. So we don't have that that nutritional yeast coming in there and giving us a really savory dive. But this is definitely like making me think cheese, like the texture and the amount of fat in there. My brain goes, ooh, this is a treat, you know. I keep getting this thing stuck. Okay, cool. So that is our first batch. This is going to be our sweet one. This plus the honey is going to be a really nice sort of treat. You can just sort of put it on. Classically, like ricotta, you'll sort of spread it onto a cracker and then just drizzle a little honey on top, or even mix the honey into the ricotta is a perfectly good idea. Just have it as a little dip. So that's what we're looking at for our first cheese. Looks pretty much like ricotta. You can see as you sort of like put your hand through it, it does kind of that ricotta thing. You could use this, I would put the nutritional yeast in it if you were going to do that, but you could use this in a lasagna, no problem. Again, lasagna, if you're doing like a full vegan lasagna, you got to deal with the cheese and everything else, or the like the actual mozzarella as well, and the eggs you might want to put in there. But you could probably put this in just straight; it'd be fine. The eggs in lasagna are really meant to just make that ricotta layer solidify up. And I just found out recently that a lot of people don't even use ricotta in their lasagna. They make a bechamel, which blew my mind because I've used ricotta in lasagna since I was a kid. So just fun. I don't know if show of hands who uses bechamel and who uses ricotta. Bechamel? Nice. You're a champ. And ricotta? I'm assuming everybody else. Yeah. I never even knew about bechamel. Like, I can't wait to go home and try it. But anyways, ricotta is sort of my go-to. So this is what I immediately thought of, was using this ricotta in a lasagna. And then you're talking like, talk about a power-packed lasagna. You'll have, you don't even need meat in it because you've just got tons of protein from the nuts. So let me put this in the fridge, stop talking, and start working on the next one. We got a nice full fridge today. All right, cool. So the reason I did that one first is so I didn't have to clean out the thing, because I don't want to have nutritional yeast in there and have it carry over to the next recipe. So that's just a little bit of like, if you were dealing with allergies or something like that, you do something similar. Always do your allergy-free thing first, and then work into the thing that actually has your allergen in it. I just hate doing dishes, so that's really why we're dealing with that. Hi, Lisa. All right, so we're going back to nuts again. So we're doing 2 cups of nuts. And I might end up just doing the rest of these, just to make sure we get them all done. I'm going to need that later. And that's just going to mean I'm going to need to add a little bit extra liquid in there, but shouldn't be anything that's going to be detrimental. That's about another half a cup. So 2.5 cups. Okay, so there's our nuts in there. And then we're going to use the rest of this coconut milk. So I know I have a little bit of extra nuts in there, so I'm just going to use a little water to rinse out the can, and I'll put that in there. And that should hopefully bring us to the amount of liquid that we need for this one. Beautiful. And then again, we're going lemon juice. We're going to do 3 tablespoons, even though I do have a little bit extra nuts. I tried that other cheese, and it was like a good amount of sour, so especially with the brewer's yeast in there, I'm not too worried about the flavor. So I'm just going to stick with the 3 that we did last time. And then I want some white vinegar. I'm not going to forget this time, 1.5 tablespoons. Perfect. And now our brewer's yeast. This stuff is great. Again, if you've never tried it before, it's really, really good on popcorn. It is. You just take it right out of the oven, or not the oven, the pan if you're doing it in a pan, or if you're doing it in a microwave. Just like a nice little trick, by the way, if you guys have never done this before, you can buy microwave popcorn if you want to. You can also just take a paper bag, put popcorn in it, and with nothing else in it, put it in the microwave, and it will cook your popcorn for you. Just hit the popcorn button; it'll work. I guarantee it. It's like a miracle. You don't need butter. You don't need anything in there. Just the microwave radiation hitting that will make it pop with absolutely nothing else. Really healthy way to get it, really fast way to do it. I literally just have a paper bag above my microwave that I use for popcorn alone. It'll save you a lot of mess. You don't have to deal with anything on the stove. So we're going to put some nutritional yeast in here. It's anywhere from 0 to 4 tablespoons. So I'm going to put 3 in here because we are cutting back a little bit on the recipe so we can split it up. But I want to go pretty heavy on it because that's pretty much our only seasoning for this. This one I'm going to get you guys on a cracker by itself, so you can sort of taste the difference between the sweet and the savory version. But I do want a good amount of this in here just because it tastes so good. Really, really good on popcorn. Good in a lot of different things. It's got a very, very unique flavor that you really can't get anywhere else. It even smells like cheese. That's so good. I grew up eating this on popcorn with my friend who was a vegetarian, and I never once missed Parmesan cheese or anything else like that. It's just really good. And you can actually get this at either one of our lovely grocery stores on the island, which is nice. I did not think you could get it at our local one here, but you can. It's there, which is great. All right, so this is looking really nice. This is starting to get a little bit reduced. It was probably up about here, and you can already see. You can literally see the liquid leaving it, which is what we want. We want to try and get as much water out of that as possible. Even though we added water, we're essentially adding that water so that we can evaporate it over the next 20 minutes and sort of let the flavors meld. If we didn't put that water in there, it would still cook down, it would still thicken, but it would definitely caramelize a lot faster. That water is protecting our ingredients from the heat so it doesn't change the flavor too much. All right, let's get this in there. This one looks a little bit more liquidy, so I have a feeling it's going to blend a little bit better too. Let's see what happens. So again, I'm going to start low, work my way up. Well, I spoke too soon. I was really excited there, and then it didn't. It didn't go for me, but that's okay. This just proves that you can do this at home, even if you don't have like the most expensive blender in the world. Let's get our poker in there. And so this one has a little bit more of a yellow color to it as well because of that the nutritional yeast I put in there. If I was going like really, really healthy for myself, for instance, and I was knew I was going to eat this myself, I'd probably throw a little bit of turmeric and black pepper in here, maybe some herbs, really like put the flavors all together, make a really sort of savory cheese. I really like a dill, particularly in that. And the turmeric for me is just if you guys have never used it before, it's really good for like anti-inflammatory. Black pepper, so I like, and those flavors for me are like become a staple in my diet. So very like sort of curry-esque almost. Oh yeah. Okay. So this is blending a little bit better than the last one, but still just going to need a little bit of help. And that's okay. This was a little bit bigger batch than the other one, and you're probably, what you're seeing right now is that it's a little bit harder. The taller you get in your blender, it's harder to sort of pull down from the top. So the smaller batch you can work in, the better. Or again, if you have a more powerful blender, you won't run into this problem at all. If you have a really powerful blender too, you can just run it for like a good while with this in there, and it will eventually blend up all of the little bits of fiber and make a very, very smooth, creamy cheese. If you do, if you have the blender to do that, I suggest doing it. This won't do anything if you run it for like 15 minutes. It's just gonna get hot. But if you have a really nice blender, you can just leave this in there. Once it gets that nice, smooth sort of funnel going, just let it go for a bit, and you'll get almost something that looks like a creamed ricotta. Something where the curds have been broken up completely to the point where it's just fully emulsified. And that's really nice if you're trying to do something a little more fancy. You want to like make a quenelle or something like that. Quenelle is like a really fancy word for just like a scoop. But again, you need the equipment for that, or it just won't do it. So close. This is looking really good. Getting nice and reduced. Take a look at our timer. Okay, we got 5 more minutes on this before we start thinking about thickening it, so that's good. We're pretty much right on time for that. And this is starting to look almost perfect. That's blended enough. Clean up a little after myself. And let's pour this one out. Make sure it's not too chunky. Oh, no, that's good. Perfect. Okay, move that somewhere where we can get at. So it looks a little bit similar to the last one. I don't know if you guys can tell from out there. I'll hold it up to the camera too. It does have a little bit more of a yellow tinge, just from that that brewer's yeast or nutritional yeast. Get over there. And again, if I was doing this at home, I'd probably be putting some herbs in here, something like that. I wanted to keep it simple though for you guys, just so you can kind of see what we start with, and then you guys can feel comfortable exploring from there. Basically, anything you want to put in here, you can put in here. If you want to make it sweeter, you can put actual sugar in there, or honey, like actual honey if you want, or this when it's done, you could put some in there. You could use some maple syrup, anything like that to make a really sweet cheese. Just keep in mind the ratios of liquid and solid. So if you're putting in some maple syrup, for instance, take out a little bit of the coconut water, or take out a little bit of the lemon juice, just some of the liquid, because you're adding liquid. You don't want to put too much in there or it won't set up. This is about the right texture you want. Oh, sorry, let me get this one. And you can kind of test the texture. If you you can see a little bit, there's a little bit of liquid pooling, but that will get absorbed. If you sort of like run your fork over it, it kind of, oh yeah, sort of run something over it, it kind of like makes these little like ridges. And that's the proteins trying to like stick together and the fibers working together, and that's kind of what you're looking for, something that is sort of stirrable. This will get a lot thicker once it has some time to absorb the liquid. The nuts are being sort of roasted nuts will want to suck that liquid back out. So I'm just going to put this in the fridge, let it hang out for a bit, and we'll finish up this honey. This one's looking really good too. I don't want to get the yeast in there. I should have tasted that one. Make sure I'm feeding you guys good food. Oh yeah. That one's good. That one tastes very similar, but immediately my brain is going towards more savory thoughts because of the brewer's yeast. The other one was a little sour. Made me start thinking about lemons and maybe some apples to dip it in. That one immediately, like, I want that with like something savory, a little piece of, I mean, I know it's like vegan cheese, but I want like a little bit of ham or something. All right, so this is looking good. This is reduced almost by like maybe 3/4 of the way, and we don't have to go completely. Again, if I wasn't using a thickening agent, I would want to go at least half, probably a little bit more, to make sure that it thickens up in the fridge. But again, we don't really have the time for that, so we're just going to use a starch. Starches are great for thickening basically anything. Most people who've used starch, you know, probably for gravy maybe in the past you've used it. That's kind of my go-to. I like to put it in my chowder just a little bit because I usually have a little bit of an oil slick on the top. That helps sort of incorporate it into the soup so that every bite you have has that nice sort of like richness to it. But I don't like thicken my chowder with it. I just like a little bit to get the oil slick in. It's a really useful thing. It's literally just starch. You can make your own if you want. If you have potatoes, or in this case this is cassava, tapioca. You just blend it with water and then you put it in a bowl and you wait. And the starch sort of just settles at the bottom of the bowl. You can pour everything out and it just will sit at the bottom of the bowl. You can take it right out, put it in on a sheet pan and put it in the oven at a really low temperature. It'll dry out. You end up with this basically, exactly. It's a really cool little trick you can do. You can do it with a surprisingly large number of things. Starch, peas have starch. Pretty much any legume is going to have starch in it. There's a surprisingly large number of things that have starch in it. That's actually how you make tofu from soybeans. It's the starch that in the soybeans that makes them set up like that. So you can make your own tofu at home, in fact, if you wanted to. Take soybeans, or I personally usually do it with like peas, and you soak them and then you blend them, kind of like what we just did with the cheese. And then you take that mixture and you can either clarify it and take the fiber out and then cook it with the starch, or you can just leave the fiber in, which is what I usually do, and just cook it over a pot until it like turns into like a paste. It's kind of crazy. You pour it into a little pan, put it in your fridge, and you have tofu. You can make it out of anything, almost anything basically, as long as it has starch in it, which any like dried bean is almost guaranteed to have a lot of starch in it. So really fun, just sort of thing to do. A little sort of aside about starch. It's a fun little bit. There's noodles you can make with this. Really good. We just had cooking program in here for the kids the other day where they made pão de queijo, cheese bread. I'm pretty sure I didn't say that right, but close enough. Cheesy bread, and that uses tapioca flour in it. It's got a really kind of like, when you make breads and baked goods with starch, it's got almost like a gummy texture to it, which goes really good with the like gooiness of the cheese. It's such a fabulous combination. It's a totally sort of different mouthfeel than like a flour-based baked good, which is very crunchy and sort of soft. It's more stretchy. It's fun. Starch is just a cool thing, and we're about to show how cool it is because we're going to take this, which is very much a liquid, and we're about to turn it like, you know, that's a little thickened. You can definitely see how it's like sort of dripping off it. It's gotten a little bit more viscosity to it, but we're about to turn that into something that's incredibly thick, and I'm very excited about it. Let's see, how are we looking? Yeah, we're good. We're at our time mark. Let's go. Let's make some honey. Whoops, excuse me. So I had this out here, and I meant to talk about it earlier. If you, for whatever reason, don't have coconut water, or you don't want to wait, or coconut milk rather, or don't want to wait, or for whatever reason, you can take that cheese and put it right into a fine mesh strainer as soon as it's done, and just let it sit over a bowl. What's going to happen is all that liquid's going to drain off of it, and you're going to end up with a thickened product immediately. I don't suggest doing it, but just in case you like need to, or maybe you made a mistake, you put too much liquid in there, or maybe you found that your blender only works if you put a lot of liquid in it, you can still make the cheese. Just this is essentially going to be your cheesecloth. You're going to be draining off the whey and getting cheese behind. You just don't want to drain off too much because they are nuts and they're pretty dry. If you drain off too much and you try and eat it the next day, it's going to like dry out your mouth. Like something that should be sort of wet and delicious is going to feel dry in your throat because it's absorbed all that liquid. They're usually, like, nuts are very, very water hungry, and so even in, you know, when they're in roasted form like that. And so this will help to sort of fix any problems you might have. A nice little fine mesh strainer. If you do have cheesecloth, you can do that as well. But try and avoid it if you can. It's just a nice little backup, just in case. You know, I love making mistakes. So I also love fixing them. This is how you're going to fix your mistakes. Just in case you don't have one, they're really nice. They're great to have around for other tasks. So feel free to grab one from the store if you want one. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take. Anytime you're using a starch, you usually don't want to put it right into a hot liquid because it's going to cook immediately and it's going to make little balls of starch. And that's not going to be very tasty. So what we're going to do is we're going to make what's called a slurry. We're going to take some of our hot liquid, or if you know I didn't want to use this hot liquid, I could just use water from the tap, but we've worked very hard to reduce this, so we don't want to add more water to it. So I'm going to take some of this liquid, I'm going to take about a cup, I'm going to take it off. Like, I'm just going to sort of pour this for you, you can sort of see, it's still pretty liquidy, but I'm going to take it off the heat. I'm going to bring it over here, I'm going to turn this heat down a little bit just because there's not that much in there. And now, in a place where it's not boiling hot anymore and where I can stir it very controlledly, I'm going to add my starch, and that's going to help make a thickener. I'm going to put that back in there, it's going to incorporate into the whole thing, and it's going to thicken everything. And so, come on. There we go. So it's 5 tablespoons. So we're going to put these in one at a time, again, because I really don't want to end up with cooked starch. I want to end up with a nice thickened honey. And so while we're shaking, we're going to go ahead and put that in there. And this is tapioca flour, which is the exact same as starch. It's one of the few sort of things that is named starch and flour at the same time. Corn starch and corn flour are very similar in a way, but you have to make sure whether you're buying it from Europe or from America. Corn flour in Europe is the same as corn starch in America, and corn flour in America is actually flour made of corn. So it's very confusing. It's not ideal. But tapioca, you don't have to worry about that. There's never any problems with tapioca. Tapioca starch, tapioca flour, they're both the exact same thing. So you don't have to worry about that with them. It makes your life a lot easier. Get in there. And again, we're putting quite a lot in here because we really want to make sure that this thing thickens. And starch is really crazy too. If you don't keep stirring it, it will just settle out almost immediately from any liquid you put it in until it gets cooked. Until it gets cooked and bonds to the water, which will happen at boiling temperature, it will just continuously separate out. So you want to make sure you keep stirring this as you go. That looks nice. It's nice and smooth. There's no chunks in there, which is good. All right, you can go there. And then we'll take this and we'll put it into our liquid here, which will help thicken it all. Great, we're just going to want that to come up to a boil. This is the exciting part, because I remember I told you guys at the beginning, I've never done this before. So I'm over here like, please thicken, you know? I hope we don't have to wait an hour for this to thicken in the fridge. It's feeling thicker already, so that's good. Oh yeah, yes. Okay, this is good. We're getting the thing that I want. I don't know if you guys can see, but how the bubbles are having a hard time breaking the surface. That is how you know it's starting to thicken really good. Oh yeah, it's super thick. Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Okay, we are making honey over here. Okay, you don't want to cook it too much because it will get so thick that it turns into a brick. You just want it to get turned into sort of honey. So I'm going to give it a little bit longer. But it's close. And I don't know if you guys saw too, like it was kind of milky for a second, and then as soon as that starch started to cook, it cleared up again as that starch got absorbed by the water. I just don't want you guys to taste too much starch, which is why I want to make sure I cook this for a little bit. But that's so cool. Look at that. It's like honey now. And it's going to get even better once you put it in the fridge, too. Wow, that's so exciting. I usually test recipes I've never done before, so again, I'm going to sit here and be amazed for a while. All right, I think that's probably enough cooking. Let's go ahead and get this back into its bowl. our nice apple juice honey. So cool. I'm so excited. I'm gonna like go home and do this again. Let me get our pot holder here. Don't burn myself. And a smaller pan would probably have been better for this. But look at that. Wow. Isn't that cool? That was apple juice. You guys all saw it. So tapioca starch again is part of the reason why we're using it here is because it does clear up a lot better. Cornstarch tends to be a little bit more gummy, which is not exactly the texture we're going for. And so tapioca, they're very, very similar, but tapioca is probably one of the more gummy of the starches, or not gummy. It's one of the more like sort of sticky, I guess. It comes from cassava. I don't know if you guys. Oh, it smells so good. Cassava is a really fun little tuber, and you can actually. There was a time where I was going to do a cassava-based gnocchi program here because they're really fun. It's one of the ingredients you can use to make fufu, which is essentially just cassava that you've cooked and then pounded and pounded and pounded until it makes like a dough almost that you can then eat, curries or different forms of sort of liquid food with. You basically pick it up with your hands, you dip it right in the food, and then eat the whole thing. It's delicious. I love that texture. I'm like kind of obsessed with it. And so cassava is unique in that it is very, very starchy. If you do that to potatoes, you're just going to get mashed potatoes. It doesn't have the right amount of starch to sort of go all the way. So this is our honey. It's very hot right now, so I'm going to let it cool just so we can eat it. And it's going to thicken up a little bit too, which is going to be nice. So I'm just going to put that in the fridge. Ooh. That is shiny. That's really exciting. And then I'm going to start, that's kind of it. I'm going to get you guys some food, obviously, but that is it for our sort of cooking portion. I'm going to start getting things sort of set up. I'm going to plate some different crackers for you guys so you can get a sort of savory and sweet flavor profile. But does anybody have any questions while I get that all set up? No? Cool, we shiny, great. All right, sweet. Let me pull this to the side. I'm gonna get some plates here. I've got a couple different crackers for us to try today. I was going through some. I don't have a really good one for the sweet one, but I'm gonna go with these clubs just because they're not quite as salty as these ones. All right, so let's play them out. Let's see how many we got. 1, 2, 3, 4. 16. Everybody down for eating? Yeah. Okay, good. I'll see if I can show you guys what a quenelle looks like as well. I don't know if you guys have ever, if you've ever been to like a fancy restaurant, you probably had something with a quenelle on it. Doing some nice easy math here. 4 by 4, 16. I think it was 18, right? Yeah. Okay, and then yeah, please do take as many hazelnuts. There should be at least enough for one bag for everybody, but take more if you're hanging at the end, and they're still there because I would love to see them all gone. They've been very, very nice to us here, but so the first one we're using is just like a basic sort of almost not. It's like a buttered. Does this have butter in it? That would kind of defeat the purpose, wouldn't it? No, it's oil. Okay, good. It's kind of like a buttery, like oily cracker. This is like sort of the vegan Ritz, basically. And so this one is pretty low on the salt, which is why I'm going to do it for our sweet one, the one we're going to drizzle the honey over. And so I'm just going to set these up on some plates. Oh, these guys are crumbly. It's not great. Oh my gosh. Well, I'll do my best to get 2 full ones for everybody. But holy crap, these things are just breaking. Oh well, you buy stuff at the store and they either are perfect or not. But crackers are always a difficult one. Wow, holy crap. What? All right, let's try another one. I don't know what just happened to that pack. Somebody was not kind to it in its early days. There we go. This one's a little bit better. So we're not doing anything fancy. I'm just going to set up some crackers on here for you guys. We'll put a little bit of dollop of cheese on top of each one. And then for these ones, we're gonna drizzle some honey. Oh, these ones broke too. Let's see if we can get some good ones out of this one. We'll drizzle some honey on top of these, and then the other one I'm just gonna do straight cheese on top. If you were so inclined at home, you could do like a little bit of herbs on there, or if you've got like a cheese board going, obviously some sort of deli meat or something along those lines would be nice. Olives would be great with it as well. I don't have any olives, unfortunately. Sorry, everybody. But we'll make it this tasty instead. Let's see if I can get some nice full ones for these guys. Oh, let's do the same size. All right, cool. That's close enough for everybody. I'll save these for the old staff. Okay, and then these are the other ones I got. These were the ones that I was really excited about. I thought they were going to be bigger, and then they're decent size. I'm not gonna lie, but these are the ones I was really excited about, and I was trying them out yesterday, and they're good, but they're a little more savory than I had anticipated, and so which is why it's good we sort of have them for the savory cheese. But they're nice. It's a nice cracker. I've never had them before, so I was very excited. I was like, ooh, pita crackers. But they really are more just crackers. They're not made of pita, so just false advertising that I was drawn in by. I too am a victim of retail, But very, very tasty. I gotta say, I was pleased with these. You guys are about to taste them too, and tell me what you think. Tell the company what you think. Go write them an email. And these guys have quite a lot of salt on them, which is another reason why I wanted to switch to something else for a bit of a more sweet bite. Not to say that there's anything wrong with salt and sweet. Salted caramel is obviously a thing for a reason. Salted honey, also absolutely delicious, so would not have hurt one bit. But I do like the idea of sort of a different flavor profile. Nice. I think we're gonna have just enough whole ones. That was my only complaint about these chips, is there were way too many broken ones in there. How are we looking? Shiny? Good. Everything's good. Sweet. All right, let me grab our cheeses out and we'll start plating, and then you guys can start coming up, grab them, take a little taste test. Let's see, do I have some nice spoons? Start with the first one we made, which was the sweet one. So a little bit of time in the fridge, you can see a little bit longer would be better. There's sort of like a little bit of a shininess on top, and that's the liquid that has started to sort of get squeezed out. The nuts have started to sort of suck up the liquid, and some of it started to sort of come around to the edges. So a little stir, and you can see that that's pretty well incorporated. And this is a nice looking cheese. There's not a lot of liquid at the bottom. Again, the first time I made this with water, there was water pooling down here, and it just wasn't as good. But this is nice. It's pretty well incorporated. And so we're just going to go ahead and put a little bit of this on each cracker. Boop. Bring me back to my old days in the kitchen. Little tiny work. And again, these are not quenelles. If my old chef saw me doing this, he'd be like, "Wash your spoon, dude." That's a good way if you ever want to make a nice shape. Make sure you start with a clean spoon. That's kind of why these are looking a little bit more haggard, is because there's protein on the spoon, there's cheese on the spoon. The cheese wants to stick to cheese. If you have a clean spoon, cheese doesn't want to stick to the spoon. So if you want a nice, beautiful... Here, let me just give it a shot. See if I still got it or not. So I'd usually have a spoon, and not only would it be clean, but it'd be a little bit wet. And then what you do is you sort of you want to get a nice... Here, let me smooth this out a little bit. You want to start with a nice sort of clean up, and you just kind of want to pull the cheese towards you. That was close. And you keep sort of pulling it and dropping it and shaping it. This isn't a very good bowl for it. But eventually, yeah, I'm absolutely messing it up. But eventually you end up with something that looks almost like a little football. It's got 3 sides. It's really beautiful. I'm totally messing it up though. Don't tell my chef. Luckily, he's back in Pennsylvania now, so he won't come and get me. But yeah, quenelle is what that's called. If you look it up on YouTube, it's a really easy way to look. And you'd be surprised how, next time you have some sour cream, I really love doing it with sour cream. And that's the perfect container to do it in too. Just give it a little try. It's fun. You can feel kind of fancy with some quenelles on your nachos, Yeah, it does, right? Here, this one got a little sidetracked over here. Get out of there. I'm just going to give you a new chip. So again, one of the things I really like about this this particular recipe is it's not as wet as the other one I was experimenting with. So like putting these on the crackers with the other cheese, I wouldn't have done it. I would have put the cheese on the side and had you come dip or something, because it starts like the other one, the liquid comes out and it starts to sort of make everything really really soggy that you put it on. Like I made toast, I put it on toast, and it would just make the toast soggy. Like it was delicious, but this one's nice. It holds onto the liquid a lot better. It works more like a cheese would, you know, where you can put it on crackers and not be worried about it just like sogging them up completely. I'm really excited to drizzle the honey on top of these. I just can't wait to see what it looks like. And I'll leave the cheese up here in case you guys are interested in getting a little bit more. I'm hoping you all like it, first off. I've been absolutely like obsessed with it since I started doing this and practicing. I can't get enough of it. I ate some for breakfast this morning. Like, I literally just, I make it all the time now. Again, almonds are really good for this particular recipe. And there's a lot of other recipes that are very similar that just, they mess with the amount of liquid mainly, depending on what kind of nut you're using. A softer nut is going to need less liquid, and that's basically the sort of main differences between them. Oops. Okay, let's see. Did I get everybody about right? Yeah, that seems good. Sweet. Put this guy back in the fridge. Let's do our savory one next, and then we'll get that honey out of there. Let me go take a peek at that honey, actually. Oh yeah. It's getting even thicker, right? It's looking like a lot like honey. That's going to be so good. Okay, cool. We'll let that cool. And it just gets even better once it gets like really, really cold. All right, so this is our savory one. This is going on the pita chips. You'll be able to tell the difference. It's a little bit more yellow too. So I would start with the pita chip one, the savory one, and then go to the sweet one, just so you can sort of see the difference. And just because it's, you know, savory then sweet, you gotta have dessert after your meal. And this would definitely work better. Well, maybe I should just do that. Well, whatever, we're already there. This would definitely work better as a dip for these pita chips, just because they're not really like plating crackers. Again, I thought they were going to be way bigger, but that's how they get you. I think it says right on the front, not actual size. So next month, by the way, just while we're here and chatting, next month we'll be doing this again. Again, this is going to be probably the longest of my program so far. We're going to go right into June with this one. So keep in mind every month when the newsletter comes out that we'll be doing another one every month. We are doing ours quite late in the month, next month, because I'm going on a little trip in February. So it will be, I think, the last Tuesday, which I think is like the 29th or something crazy like that. So just keep that in mind. Plenty of time to get ready for our next one, and it's going to be a good one. They're always good ones, honestly. But the next one is a little bit of a sort of home-style treat that I think a lot of you have probably had as a bit of a comfort food, but that I guarantee you've never had the way I'm going to cook it. And so that's a bit of a, it's a warmer, it's a winter warmer, so I don't know if that helps or not. Trying to think of another good hint. I don't want to give it away, so I won't say anything else, but I do feel, no, if I say it, you're all going to get it, so, well, some of you might, but I'm not going to say the word. It starts with a P and ends with illo.
And ends with what?
I'm not saying it again, Michael. Okay, cool, there we go. There's cheese on everything. Let's get some honey drizzled, and let's call this a program. All right. So as you guys can see, this is still a little bit warm, but it's starting to thicken up really nice. It's getting very honey-esque. Again, this is my first time doing this, so I'm like really impressed with this. I I'm hoping that even once this cools, it doesn't like turn into like a brick. A lot of times starch will get almost too starchy, but I'm hoping this turns out really good. I mean, it looks really good. So, all right, let's get a little drizzle going on these sweet ones here. Before I do that, I should try this so I don't just like poison you guys or something. You know? That's pretty good. I'm gonna say it's good. It's not honey, I'll tell you right now, but it is good. I'm very excited about this. Okay, I'm gonna start in the front. If you guys want to start getting up and stuff, I'm gonna start in the front. You guys can just come take these as we go. Yeah, I'm just gonna say, I think going back, I would probably want to try this the sort of more time-intensive way, where you just reduce it a little bit longer and let it thicken in the fridge. I do think, while the starch is nice, I do think it kind of takes away from the experience, to be honest. But I'm still gonna, it's still nice. It still looks like honey, which is really kind of what we were going for. But I think on a flavor profile, as like a chef, I would want to go back and take the time and avoid the starch. Just my honest opinion of what we've made today. It's nice though.
So if it sits on the cracker, it won't get soggy?
It shouldn't. Yeah, exactly. I was doing this yesterday. I had some crackers in it like a dip, and the bottoms were fine. They were still crispy. So it definitely is better than it was then. Yeah, of course.
Come on.
This honey's so crazy.
What about, don't you put it on that one?
No, that's the savory one.
Okay. Start with which one?
Whichever one you want, but I would start with the savory one. Getting kind of messy with the honey here, guys. Sorry. I don't usually eat a lot of honey as is, so I'm very bad at pouring it.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, of course. The triangle crackers should be the savory one with the nut yeast or nutritional yeast, and then the little or oregano. What is it called? Rectangular ones are the sweet ones, and they have the honey on them. This honey is crazy. I'm still like, this is all so new for me. It's kind of cool.
How long can you keep it?
The honey, the recipe that I got this from said 6 months in the fridge, so quite a long time. And again, I would, having done this now, I would try a recipe that didn't use starch. I would do the one with a little bit less sugar and more time to reduce. Yeah, of course. I hope you guys like it. This is also new for me, so I'm kind of like excited to see how it goes. Fully out of my comfort zone even, so I'm about to get in here and try it myself. Okay, let's see. Yeah, if you guys want extra, just come on up. I'll make you more crackers. Well, that's good together, though. I like that. Okay. Yeah, it definitely works better together. The honey's a little overwhelming by itself. I can eat that all day. I'll have another. So yeah, as you're going, obviously, a lot of times, the cracker is going to sort of be one of the main flavors you're having, but try and pick out those little bits. Try and find the lemon juice in there. Try and find when you're having the savory one, try and find that brewer's yeast. I can go behind this now. See how this one turned out on the cracker.
Savory on a cracker that didn't have any.
Yeah. This one is not as good. I'm not gonna lie, guys. I don't know what I did different, but this one's not as good as it was yesterday. So, my apologies there. But that's just kind of the way things go. You know, every time you make it, it's going to be a little bit different. So, anyways, thank you guys for coming. Thanks for snacking with me. Thanks for enjoying. Please do come back up if you want to try a little bit more of anything. But otherwise, I'll see you next month. Again, it's going to be end of the month, last Thursday of February. And we'll be cooking something tasty, something warm, something delicious that I am very excited to show you all. You're going to be like, are you sure? And I'll be like, just trust me. And hopefully it works out. Anyways, I'll see you guys all later.